Admiral James Wright stood at the bridge of the Earth flagship, Defiance, his weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass as he stared into the depths of space. Behind him, 50 ships, humanity's entire remaining fleet, held formation in the dark void. These vessels represented everything left of human military might after 20 years of brutal war against the Galactic Empire. Status report, Wright commanded, his voice steady despite the weight of responsibility pressing down on his shoulders. All ships report ready. Admiral, Lieutenant Reed answered from his station. The quantum cascade drives are charged and stable. Engineering teams confirm successful integration across all vessels. Wright nodded, remembering the countless sacrifices that had led to this moment. 3 months ago, the Empire had destroyed their largest shipyard on Mars, believing they had crushed humanity's last hope of resistance. They didn't know about the secret facilities buried deep beneath Europa's ice, where Dr. Peters and her team had worked tirelessly to perfect the quantum cascade technology. The bridge crew worked in focused silence, broken only by the soft beeping of monitoring systems. Through the viewport, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space, its surface still bearing the scars of Imperial bombardment from the first days of the war. Admiral, Commander Ross called out, her voice tense. Long-range sensors are picking up Imperial signatures. Massive energy readings consistent with their primary battle fleet. Wright's jaw tightened. Numbers. 10,000 vessels, sir. They're moving in standard attack formation. Grand Marshal Axor's flagship is leading the charge. A murmur ran through the bridge crew. 10,000 against 50. By any conventional military calculation, this was suicide. But humanity had long since run out of conventional options. Wright pressed a button on his command chair, opening a channel to all human ships. This is Admiral Wright to all vessels. The enemy approaches with overwhelming force, believing they come to witness humanity's surrender or our extinction. They expect us to bow before their superior numbers, their advanced technology, their unshakable empire. He paused, watching as the first Imperial ships began appearing on their closer-range sensors. But they don't understand humanity. We don't surrender. We don't accept extinction. For 20 years, they've pushed us back, burned our worlds, killed our people. They thought they had us beaten. They were wrong. The massive Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace in waves, their ships stretching out as far as the eye could see. Their sleek, crystalline vessels glittered in the sunlight, a stark contrast to the utilitarian design of human ships. All ships power up quantum cascade drives, Wright ordered. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. Every human being who has died in this war. Every child who deserves to grow up free. Today we show the Empire that humanity will never kneel. The first wave of Imperial ships moved into attack position, 1,000 vessels strong. Their energy readings spiked as they charged their weapons. On the Empire's command channel, which humanity had long since cracked, Grand Marshal Axor's voice boomed with confidence. Primitive humans, this is your final chance. Surrender now, and we will grant you mercy. Resist, and we will reduce your precious Earth to atoms. Wright smiled grimly. All ships, initialize quantum cascade sequence. Target coordinates locked. On my mark. The Imperial ships launched their first volley, streams of plasma fire lighting up space. But before the attacks could reach the human fleet, Wright gave the command. Execute. 50 quantum cascade drives activated simultaneously. Space itself seemed to shudder. Reality warped and twisted as artificial singularities bloomed among the Imperial ships. The first wave of the Empire's fleet found themselves being torn apart by forces they couldn't comprehend. Their mighty ships crushed into nothing by the power of weaponized spacetime itself. As alarms blared across the Imperial fleet and confusion spread through their ranks, Wright's voice remained calm. All ships, prepare for second volley. Today, we begin taking back our galaxy. The battle for humanity's survival had begun, and for the first time in 20 years, Hope flickered in the hearts of Earth's defenders. The Empire was about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate human determination. 3 years earlier, deep beneath the red sands of Mars, Dr. Maria Peters stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The simulation had worked. After 15 failed attempts, the quantum equations finally balanced. "Run it again," she ordered her computer. The underground lab hummed with power as massive processors calculated the complex mathematics of space-time manipulation. Around her, old coffee cups and scattered papers told the story of months of endless work. The lab itself was a triumph of human ingenuity. While Imperial patrol ships circled overhead, humans had carved out this secret facility 2 miles below the Martian surface. The Empire had banned humans from studying advanced physics, calling them too primitive to handle such knowledge. But they had never truly understood human stubbornness. The computer beeped. Same result. The numbers worked. "Tom," Maria called to her assistant, "get Admiral Wright on the secure line. He needs to see this." While they waited for the connection, Maria remembered the day everything changed. She had been a junior researcher at Harvard when the Empire's ships first appeared in Earth's sky. They had called themselves liberators, promising to uplift humanity. Instead, they became conquerors, destroying any human technology they deemed too advanced. The secure line crackled to life. Admiral Wright's hologram appeared, his expression tired but alert. "Dr. Peters, your message said it was urgent." "Sir, we've done it." Maria pulled up the simulation. "Watch this." The holographic display showed a small sphere of space. As the simulation ran, the sphere twisted in on itself, creating a controlled miniature black hole that disappeared moments later. "We can control it now," Maria explained, her voice excited but kept low out of habit. "The quantum cascade effect can be started and stopped at will. More importantly, we can direct it. We can choose exactly where space-time tears apart." Wright leaned forward, suddenly very interested. "And you're sure it will work on their ships?" "Their shields stop matter and energy, sir. This isn't either. We're manipulating the fabric of space itself. There's nothing they can do to stop it." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "How long to build a working prototype?" 6 months. Maybe 4 if we get those engineers you promised from the Europa base. You'll have them tomorrow." Wright's hologram flickered. "But the Empire's patrols are increasing. They suspect we're up to something. We'll need to move quickly." As if to emphasize his point, the lab's warning system flashed red. "Imperial patrol approaching," a computerized voice announced. "Blackout protocols engaging." The lab went dark except for emergency lights. Above them, through 2 miles of Martian rock, an Imperial patrol ship passed overhead. Its sensors swept the area, searching for any sign of forbidden research. Maria held her breath. The shields they'd built should hide them, but each patrol was a reminder of the danger they faced. After 5 tense minutes, the all-clear signal sounded. "That was too close," Tom whispered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It'll be worth it," Maria replied, turning back to her calculations. "Once we perfect this, they'll never be able to bully us again." Over the next months, Maria's team worked around the clock. Imperial patrols increased, but the humans were careful. They sent their data in small, encrypted bursts. They moved equipment through old mining tunnels. Every scientist and engineer knew that discovery meant death, but none of them quit. Finally, on a cold Martian morning, Maria watched as her team installed the first quantum cascade drive into a test drone. If it worked, they could begin refitting the entire human fleet. If it failed, they might lose their last chance to free Earth. "Test sequence starting," Tom announced. "Quantum field stable. Try engaging in 3, 2, 1. The drone disappeared in a flash of twisted space, exactly as the simulation had predicted. When it reappeared 10 seconds later, every sensor showed success. Maria smiled, thinking of the Empire's mighty ships. "Let them come," she whispered. We're ready for them now. Grand Marshal Axor watched in horror as the first wave of Imperial ships vanished into nothingness. His massive flagship, the Crystal Throne, hung back from the main battle, surrounded by elite guard vessels. On his command screen, 1,000 ships had just disappeared. "Impossible," he growled, his fist crushing the armrest of his command chair. "Report. What happened to the first attack wave?" His science officer, pale and shaking, studied the readings. "Sir, space itself. It twisted around our ships. The laws of physics stopped working. I've never seen anything like it." Axor stood up, his tall frame towering over his bridge crew. For 300 years, the Empire had ruled the galaxy. Their technology was supreme. Their ships were unbeatable. And now, a group of primitive humans had done this. "Launch the second wave," he commanded. "All ships, evasive patterns. Whatever weapon they're using must have limits." On the human flagship, Defiance, Admiral Wright watched the Imperial fleet's reaction. "Status of our quantum cascade drives." "Recharging, sir," Lieutenant Reed reported. 70% power. 2 minutes until we can fire again." Commander Ross spoke up from her station. "Sir, the Empire is launching their second wave. 2,000 ships this time. They're spreading out, making themselves harder to target." Wright nodded. The Empire was adapting quickly, but he had expected this. "Signal the fleet. Break into attack groups of 5 ships each. Time to show them what else we can do." The human fleet split apart, small groups of ships moving in different directions. The Imperial vessels followed, thinking they had found an advantage. Their energy weapons lit up space, but the human ships were quick and well-trained. They dodged and weaved, taking only minor hits on their shields. "Quantum cascade drives at full power," Reed announced. "All groups, execute attack pattern Delta," Wright ordered. The scattered human ships suddenly turned as one. Each group of 5 targeted a different section of the Imperial fleet. Multiple quantum cascade drives activated at once, creating smaller but more precise tiers in spacetime. Imperial ships vanished by the dozens as artificial black holes appeared throughout their formation. On the Crystal Throne, Axor watched in growing rage as his mighty fleet was torn apart. "Our shields do nothing against their weapon," his science officer reported. "They're not attacking our ships directly. They're destroying the space around them." "Impossible." Axor slammed his fist on his command console. "They are primitives. We denied them advanced physics research for a reason. How did they develop this technology?" A nearby Imperial cruiser exploded as a quantum cascade effect caught its engine section. The blast rocked Axor's flagship. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "the human ships are moving faster than our targeting systems can track. They're using the chaos of their attacks as cover. We've lost contact with 30% of our fleet." In space, the battle had turned into a deadly dance. Imperial ships fired desperately at the nimble human vessels, but couldn't land solid hits. Each time they grouped up for protection, the humans would trigger their quantum cascade drives and tear apart space itself. On the Defiance, Wright allowed himself a small smile. "Signal the fleet. Begin Phase 2 of the attack." The human ships regrouped suddenly, forming a spear formation aimed at the heart of the Imperial fleet. Their quantum cascade drives pulsed in sequence, creating a cascading wave of spatial distortions that ripped through the enemy formation. Axor watched as his perfect battle line crumbled. Ships vanished by the hundreds. The mighty Imperial fleet, which had conquered 1,000 worlds, was being destroyed by 50 human vessels. "All ships, fall back," he finally ordered. "Regroup at the secondary position. We must adapt to this weapon." But as his remaining ships tried to retreat, Wright's voice came over all channels. "You're not going anywhere. The hunt has just begun. All ships, brace for impact." Wright's voice boomed through the Defiance's command channel. The Empire's new attack pattern filled space with so many energy beams that dodging them all became impossible. The human flagship shuddered as multiple hits struck its shields. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits on the bridge. Through the viewport, Wright watched 3 other human ships taking heavy damage. Shields at 40%. Lieutenant Reed reported, his hands flying over his controls. The Empire's throwing everything at us now, sir. Commander Ross's voice cut through the chaos. We've lost the Thunder and Lightning. Crews managed to escape in survival pods. That brings us down to 45 ships. The Imperial fleet had changed tactics. Instead of fighting in organized formations, they now spread their remaining 7,000 ships in a loose cloud. They fired constantly, filling space with energy beams and plasma bolts. Even with their superior speed and skill, the human ships couldn't dodge everything. On the Imperial flagship, Grand Marshal Axor smiled coldly. See how they struggle now. Quantity has a quality all its own. Their quantum weapon means nothing if they can't survive long enough to use it. His science officer approached with a datapad. Sir, we've analyzed their attack patterns. The quantum effect takes exactly 2 minutes to recharge. If we time our attacks right, we can catch them when they're weakest. Axor finished. He opened a channel to his fleet. All ships, coordinate your attacks. Don't give them time to recover between volleys. Back on the Defiance, Dr. Peters rushed onto the bridge. Her lab coat was stained with hydraulic fluid from helping repair crews below decks. Admiral, she called out. The quantum cascade drives weren't designed to handle this much continuous use. The containment fields are starting to fail. If we push them too hard, they could collapse. Another hit rocked the ship. More warning lights flashed on every console. We can't keep fighting like this, Commander Ross said, studying the tactical display. The Empire's learned our tricks. They're forcing us to choose between using our drives until they break, or getting shot to pieces. Wright gripped his command chair as another volley struck the ship. Options. Sir, Lieutenant Reed spoke up. What if we let them think they've won? Play dead, let them come closer. And then hit them point blank when they least expect it. Wright finished. He nodded slowly. Send the orders. All ships to emergency power. Make it look like they've crippled us. The human fleet's lights dimmed. Their engines sputtered and died. They drifted in space like wounded animals. Axor watched this display with satisfaction. Finally, move in for the kill. Prepare boarding parties. I want their quantum technology intact. The Imperial ships closed in, their caution fading as the human fleet appeared to be defeated. Axor's mighty flagship led the way, its crystal spires gleaming in the starlight. On the Defiance, the bridge crew waited in near darkness. Through the viewport, they could see Imperial ships surrounding them on all sides. Power to quantum cascade drives at maximum, Reed whispered. They've taken the bait. Wait for it, Wright commanded softly. The Imperial ships moved closer. Closer. Almost there. Now, the human fleet burst to life. Their quantum cascade drives activated simultaneously, creating a massive web of spatial distortions. At point-blank range, there was no time for the Imperial ships to react. Space twisted and tore. Thousands of Imperial ships vanished in an instant, including Axor's flagship. The survivors panicked, their formation breaking apart completely. But as the quantum effects faded, alarm klaxons blared throughout the human fleet. Admiral, Dr. Peters shouted, the drives are overloading. We've pushed them too far. Wright watched new warning lights flash across his command console. The battle wasn't over yet, and now both sides were in serious trouble. Warning lights flashed across every ship in the human fleet. The quantum cascade drives were failing, their containment fields collapsing after the massive coordinated strike. Engineering reports critical failure in 15 minutes. Commander Ross shouted over the sound of failing systems. We need to shut down the drives now. But Dr. Peters wasn't listening. She stared at her datapad, her eyes moving rapidly as she processed the readings from the last attack. When all 45 drives had fired together, Something unexpected had happened. "Admiral," she called out suddenly, "I need access to the fleet's main computer. Right now." Wright looked at her sharply. "We're in the middle of a battle, Doctor. Trust me. I found something." Her fingers flew across the computer terminal as soon as she got access. When all our drives fired together, they didn't just add together, they multiplied. The space-time distortion was exponentially larger than it should have been. Through the viewport, they could see the remaining Imperial ships regrouping. 3,000 vessels still remained, more than enough to destroy the human fleet if the quantum cascade drives failed. "What are you suggesting?" Wright asked, watching the enemy's movements. "We modify the drives. Link them together in sequence, like a wave. Each ship's drive powers up the next one. The power increase would be..." She showed him the calculations. Wright's eyes widened. "Can you do it? Give me 10 minutes. You have 5. Peters ran from the bridge, calling engineering teams on her communicator. Meanwhile, the Imperial fleet began to advance again. On the lead Imperial ship, Captain Marcus had taken command after Grand Marshal Axer's death. He watched the human fleet with cold calculation. "Their weapons are failing," he told his crew. "This time, we finish them." But the humans had one more surprise waiting. As the Imperial ships approached, the human fleet split into small groups of 3 ships each. They scattered in different directions, moving fast. "Hunt them down," Marcus ordered. "Don't let them escape." The Imperial fleet divided, chasing after the small human squadrons. But that was exactly what Wright had planned. "All ships, activate modified drives on my mark," he ordered through the fleet channel. "Remember the sequence. Don't break the chain." The human ships continued their evasive patterns, drawing the Imperial vessels into a complex web of pursuit. At exactly the right moment, Wright gave the command. "Now." The first ship in each squadron activated its quantum cascade drive. Instead of creating a space-time distortion, it sent a pulse of energy to the next ship in line. That ship's drive caught the energy, amplified it, and passed it on. The effect rippled through space like a wave. Each trio of human ships created a cascade of power that grew stronger and stronger. Where the waves met, space itself seemed to cry out in protest. Imperial ships found themselves caught in a web of overlapping spatial distortions. Metal twisted, crystal shattered. Energy shields meant nothing as space itself became a weapon. "Formation Omega," Wright commanded. The human squadrons moved in perfect sync, their linked drives creating patterns of destruction across the battlefield. Captain Marcus watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart by forces he couldn't even understand. "Full retreat," he ordered. "Get us out of here." But it was too late. The quantum cascade wave had grown too powerful to stop. 2,000 Imperial ships vanished in less than 5 minutes. On the Defiance, Dr. Peters monitored the readings with growing concern. "Admiral, the wave pattern is stable, but our drives won't last much longer at this power level." Wright nodded grimly. "They don't need to. Look." The remaining Imperial ships were running, their perfect formations shattered, their confidence broken. For the first time in 300 years, the Empire had faced a force they couldn't defeat. "Send word to Earth," Wright ordered. "Tell them the tide has turned, and get me a damage report from all ships. This battle isn't over yet." News of the Empire's defeat spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, alien species watched recordings of the battle in secret. They saw massive Imperial ships vanish into twisted space. They watched the mighty Empire run from just 45 human vessels. Hope, long forgotten under centuries of Imperial rule, began to stir again. On the desert world of Cax, Imperial Governor Dax watched his garrison troops desert their posts. The reptilian Caxians, once considered the most loyal Imperial subjects, had risen up against their masters. "The humans have shown us the truth," their leader announced on all channels. "The Empire is not invincible." Similar reports came from across Imperial space. The blue-skinned warriors of the Trell system seized their orbital defense stations. The peaceful Venturi locked their Imperial overseers out of their atmospheric processors. One by one, worlds that had bent the knee to empire for generations began to stand tall again. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Wright received message after message from rebel groups and uprising planets. Another Imperial battle group has changed sides, Commander Ross reported, reading from her screen. The Andoran ships. Their admiral says his people are tired of being slaves. Wright nodded. The Andorans were famous shipbuilders, forced to create vessels for the Empire. Now those same ships were turning their guns on their former masters. How many Imperial ships have defected so far? He asked. Over 500, sir. And more are coming every hour. Lieutenant Reed looked up from his station. Sir, incoming transmission from the Imperial capital world. They're trying to broadcast on all frequencies, but many systems are blocking their signal. Let's hear it, Wright ordered. A hologram appeared on the bridge. It showed the Imperial High Council, the 12 beings who had ruled the galaxy with absolute power for centuries. They looked afraid. Attention all Imperial forces, their leader spoke, his voice shaking. The human rebels must be destroyed at all costs. Their quantum weapons threaten the very fabric of the Empire. All loyal ships are ordered to converge on the Sol system. We will crush this infection of rebellion before. The transmission cut off suddenly. A new voice broke in, one that made Wright smile. This is Captain Marcus of the Imperial ship Starbreaker to all vessels, the former Imperial commander announced. I was there at the battle. I saw what the humans can do. But more importantly, I saw how they fought. They could have destroyed us all, but they let survivors retreat. They fought for freedom, not conquest. Marcus paused, and Wright could hear the sounds of fighting in the background of his transmission. The Empire told us humans were primitives, Marcus continued. They said humans were too dangerous to be trusted with advanced science, but the Empire lied. They feared humans because humans never stopped fighting for freedom, never stopped pushing forward, never accepted being slaves. More Imperial ships were appearing on the long-range scanners, but they weren't moving into attack positions. They were falling into formation alongside the human fleet. I call on all Imperial forces, Marcus declared. Look at your crews. Look at the beings serving under you. How many are slaves? How many serve out of fear? The humans have shown us another way. I'm ordering my ships to join them. Any who wish to fight for true freedom, come with me. On the Defiance's bridge, the crew watched in amazement as more and more Imperial ships switched sides. Message from Dr. Peters. Sir, Ross reported. She says she can modify our quantum cascade technology to work with Imperial ships. We can share our advantage with our new allies. Wright smiled. The Empire had spent centuries keeping species divided, afraid of each other. Now that policy had backfired completely. Send word to Earth, he ordered. Tell them to prepare for guests. It's time to build something new, something better than the Empire ever was. The revolution had begun, and there would be no stopping it now. The Imperial capital world burned. Not from weapons or bombs, but from the fires of celebration. The streets of the massive city planet were filled with beings from 1,000 different species, all celebrating their newfound freedom. The Imperial Palace, once forbidden to common people, now flew the flags of every liberated world. Admiral Wright stood in the former Imperial High Council chamber, looking out over the endless city. Behind him, representatives from hundreds of species worked to build a new government. The last Imperial stronghold has surrendered, Commander Ross reported, walking up beside him. A few die-hard loyalists tried to make a final stand in the outer rim, but their own crews turned against them. And the High Council members, captured while trying to flee to their secret bunker world. Captain Marcus led that mission himself. Wright nodded. The former Imperial officer had proved to be a valuable ally. Like many in the Empire's military, he'd only needed to see a path to something better. Dr. Peters entered the chamber, followed by a team of alien scientists. The former Imperial Science Division had been amazed by her quantum cascade technology. More importantly, they'd been inspired by how humans had developed it in secret, never giving up hope. "The knowledge-sharing program is working better than we hoped," Peters told Wright. "We're not just teaching them our technology, they're teaching us too. The Andorans have ideas that could make the quantum drives twice as powerful. The Ventari understand space-time in ways we never imagined." "The Empire's greatest mistake," Wright said, "was thinking they could keep species from working together. They thought keeping everyone divided made them stronger." Looking around the chamber, he saw former enemies working side by side. Reptilian Caxians discussed defense plans with furry Trell engineers. Crystalline beings from the outer worlds shared ancient knowledge with human scientists. Every species brought something unique to the Alliance. "Message from Earth, sir," Lieutenant Reed called out. "The first wave of reconstruction ships has launched. They're bringing supplies and aid to the worlds hit hardest by Imperial rule." This was humanity's true victory, not just defeating the Empire, but helping build something better in its place. Every human ship now carried supplies, teachers, and hope to former Imperial worlds. The new Galactic Council was taking shape. Unlike the Empire's High Council, this one had representatives from every species. No one race would ever dominate the others again. The quantum cascade technology was shared freely, but with safeguards to prevent its misuse. Trust had to be earned. "Admiral," a young aide interrupted, "the ceremony is ready to begin." Wright straightened his uniform and walked to the center of the chamber. Thousands of beings fell silent as he approached the ancient speaking platform. Billions more watched on communication channels across the galaxy. 300 years ago, he began, the Empire came to power by turning species against each other. They ruled through fear and division. They called themselves superior and labeled everyone else primitive. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings from across the galaxy. But they forgot something important. They forgot that strength comes from working together. They forgot that every species has something to teach and something to learn. Most importantly, they forgot that the desire for freedom burns in every heart, no matter what planet you call home. The chamber erupted in cheers. Wright waited for quiet before continuing. "Today, we begin something new. Not an empire, but an alliance. Not rulers and subjects, but partners and friends. We've proved that we're stronger together. Now let's build a future worthy of that strength." As the chamber filled with applause, Wright watched the sun setting over the capital city. The Empire had taken 300 years to build, and humanity had helped tear it down in less than a month. But the real work was just beginning. Building something better would take time. But for the first time in centuries, the galaxy had hope. And that was humanity's greatest gift to the stars.